Good evening. Welcome to our program, Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess for tonight's show, and as always, I have a very special lady with us tonight, which I'm going to introduce to you in just a few moments. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for this first half. I'd like to thank Villa Bass Deli and Cafe, home of Pete's famous Basque chorizo, as well as Carpa Nevada LLC, importer of fine Portuguese olive oils, aged balsamic vinegar, and international health teas. So with that, let's turn to Elizabeth Tully. She is our guest. And Elizabeth, I'd like to welcome you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me, Carol.
Pleasure to have you. I'd like to kind of frame this in for just a moment with our viewing audience. Elizabeth is a gifted musician, but she's not here necessarily to talk about her music per se tonight. Hopefully that could be for another show. But Elizabeth has a sensitive story that affects many young women, young adult women, and some adult men. And her willingness to come here and share her journey through this eating disorder is very special to all of us. So Elizabeth, help us understand, first of all, as a child growing up, where did you grow up and when did you first feel that there was something that just wasn't connecting right with you?
Okay. Well, first of all, Carol, I want to say that this issue addresses women, some men, many, many women of all ages.
Okay.
I'm not that young. I'm nearly 50.
Oh, I like you even more.
This challenge continues throughout my life. So we're talking about compulsive eating, dieting, exercising, connected to binging, purging, and anorexia. So it's compulsion around food. Gosh, I have done a lot of reflection and journaling, and I think my first memory is it being in kindergarten, in hiding in the snack closet and binging on the little cookie basket and feeling incredibly alone and ashamed. I knew there was a monster inside of me, and I had no tools whatsoever to
deal
cope
with this
it.
monster. Did you have brothers and sisters growing up?
Yes.
Okay, and did you ever feel, Elizabeth, that as a 4-year-old or 5-year-old or 6-year-old, that you could turn to one of them? Did you think they maybe knew about this monster, or they might have a monster with them too?
We all had it, and I think there are so many layers to what causes a compulsion, and what started for us was environmental. My parents had us on restricted food. There were forbidden foods, and that was the root of it. Before body issues and media came into play, I was 4 or 5 years old. It was a sense of what is poisonous food as opposed to pure and cleansing foods.
Okay,
and
but
so
now,
yes.
Okay, excuse me for interrupting, but I was not, as kids, my sister and I were not allowed to have sodas. Pop, we call them in the Midwest. We weren't allowed to have gum unless it was really a special occasion. So one day I came home and I picked up some bubble gum off the sidewalk, and it was fairly freshly, it was not something that was old and sticky and tough, and I delighted in it, much to my mother's horror, So I'm saying, just because as families, maybe some families are vegetarian, and they say, no meat in this house. Or maybe some families are meat and potato eaters, and that has to be at every supper. Is it that type of intolerance sometimes for certain desserts or certain snacks that kids like? Or is there a more intense intolerance for certain types of foods?
I mean, for me, it's progressed. The reasons for the compulsion. So the first thing was it was forbidden, and whenever I could get my hands on something, I pounded it. So Halloween, my treats would be taken away, so I'd be on the street corner eating unwrapping as much as I possibly could before I got home. Sleepovers at people's homes. It was whatever I could get, as much as I could get my hands on, that kind of a thing.
Okay, so let me interrupt again and just interject here. As a child, then was there an emotional release or emotional satisfaction that came with eating all of these forbidden foods? You felt good about that. satisfied with that.
Yes, but it's very momentary because there's,
Okay.
again, incredible shame. You know it's not pretty. There's a sneakiness to it. There is I don't know, I felt kind of like the mooch, you know, the friend that was always whining and
Yes.
trying to wheel and deal at school and trade my cucumber for their
Right.
Twinkie.
Right.
You know,
Okay.
and so there's shame around that. But then this evolved when puberty began too. So
All
then
right.
you've got what's happening to my body issues, not
Right.
wanting to face weight gain. And so then you've
Mm-hmm.
got media. You've
Okay.
got, my father was an acting teacher, and so he was very aware of how we looked if we wanted to pursue
A career in
a
that.
career in
Right.
that field. And so the natural shape that becomes a woman is fat and too big and ugly, and so the dieting starts.
Okay.
The dieting starts.
Rather than saying to yourself, no, I'm just not going to have this ice cream cone today. I'm just going to say no to it. That's not sufficient to stop that inner desire of wanting more food.
The compulsion becomes all or nothing.
Oh, okay.
It becomes, I will never eat that. It's terrible for me. I'm going to eat just salads and nuts or just fast today or
Okay.
the next 5 days or as much as I can stand. And then what evolves is then this rubber banding effect. Okay, so you
Meaning
go
what?
you're
Rubber
starved,
banding?
You're absolutely become crazed, and a moment happens. Someone looks at you the wrong way. Something happens. It's anything. Life is like that. Any kind of difficult second in time will trigger the need to escape into the food. It becomes bigger than and more important than anything.
So at this point, I have to ask, did your parents or the rest of the family know that this was happening to you?
No, not at all.
How
No
did you
one
hide that?
I never appeared fat, too thin, ill. It was always, I have pretty much all my life looked okay. And so I could never really convince anyone that I was troubled with this. And I guess for many years, I don't know, there was a part of me that thought that was just how it is. I don't, you know.
Everybody has to be dealing
Or
with this,
there's no,
or
there
lots of
didn't
others.
seem to be an answer to it until I came upon this writer, Janine Roth.
Okay, and when did you discover Janine Roth?
I was in this post-college, mid-20s, working in Manhattan on Wall Street, like working all night doing word processing, because I
Right.
was doing the acting thing during the day. And a colleague of mine was reading her book and carrying around a little sack of food, because she was allowed to eat whatever she wanted.
Okay.
And so I was intrigued with it, and I read her first book, which is called, it's here in this pile, Feeding the Hungry Heart.
Okay.
And a lot of it is testimonials of women who were just like me, what they were going through, what they would do at the grocery store or in their car or in their beds with food at night. It was very cathartic. And there was someone talking about, it's called Feeding the Hungry Heart, the
Yes.
experience of compulsive eating. And it was an entree into there are many like you, and there's hope for you.
And
There's a way out.
okay, and I think I shared with you earlier before the program that in my teaching career, I had never seen a young woman or a young man or anyone in my life actually who was dealing with an eating disorder until I had a business of my own back in Ohio. And a couple of young, beautiful young women walked into my store, one of whom I knew, the other one I did not. They were not together, but they were emaciated. I could actually see the contour of their bones, of the joints, and of the cranium, of the bones and the jaw bones and the cheekbones. And it caught me completely off guard. And eventually, over time, I got to know them. They came into the store off and on, and finally shared that they were fighting an eating disorder. And it was as you described, it was a monster that they dealt with 24/7. And the parents were almost beside themselves until they found some way to lead these daughters into accepting that there is hope, that there is a way through this, but we'll have to deal with it perhaps the rest of our lives, but we'll deal with it because we want you to be healthy. Now, does that ring any kind of memories with you?
Well, I mean, people like me, in a tongue-in-cheek way, say we're failed anorexics because we could never truly successfully starve ourselves. We always had to then pound the food afterwards.
Okay.
I took quite a few year foray into bulimia. So after stuffing myself, I would purge, make myself vomit.
You didn't take laxatives or you didn't take
No.
diuretics or something
No.
of that nature?
And in the 90s, early 90s, I actually found myself going to the Overeaters Anonymous, a 12-step program, when I realized I had purged 4 days in a row. But there are many women out there who do it 4 times a day, if not more. But for me, every time it was like, this is the last time, never again. And talk about self-loathing. It is a disgusting, horrible, violent event. So it just chips away at one's soul. And really, how can any woman move forward with anything in her life when this has a hold of her?
Yes.
It keeps us back. So I've only been able to starve, like fasting, like with fruit juices or whatever, several days.
Okay.
And then maybe incorporate salads or something, trying to stay really pure before it would eventually rubber band in another direction. I've also done things like spend 3-4 hours at the gym undoing 2 bags of M&Ms, 2 pound bags of M&Ms. There were times at university I couldn't write a paper, and I was an English major, so that was every week.
That's right.
Several times.
Right.
Without a pound of M&Ms at the typewriter with the white out. Remember
Yes,
those
yes,
days?
yes, very much. I remember the M&Ms, but I want mine with peanuts.
So in order to face anything that I thought was difficult, so what did I use food for? Fear, anxiety, boredom, joy, relief, release, escape. Pretty much all of the emotions that got too much to bear.
Okay.
It's a way of escaping.
And food became your all in all.
I hate to say that, but whether it was trying to undo damage I'd done with food, or thinking about the next binge, or the
dominated.
next diet. How am I going to lose this weight? I used to say, well, I'm majoring in English, but I'm really majoring in my specialty is losing and gaining 15 pounds. That's what I do.
When we come back to the second part of our program, we're going to delve more deeply into the paths that Elizabeth has taken with this food addiction, and we're hoping that seeds are being planted out there tonight, that others will take hope from Elizabeth's story. So don't go away, we'll be right back.
Blast into summer with Carson Nugget's $1 million red, white, and blue summer giveaway, where we are giving away scooters all summer long. And with daily free play giveaways, cash bash weekends, outdoor barbecues, and more. Come in today to heat up your summer.
Apex SCF provides cutting-edge, hands-on training that effectively addresses today's threats of violence.
The Apex Stay Alive course teaches proven methods for personal protection and attack countermeasures that can be applied in any environment. In your home, at the workplace, or on campus, Apex will teach you the necessary skills to stay alive, including how to recognize and react to an active shooter scenario.
If you knew you had to fight for your life tomorrow, would you train today? Contact us now to sign up for a class in your region.
Hi, I'm Stephen Lincoln with CarsonCityHomes.com, Carson City's original online real estate resource.
At CarsonCityHomes.com, you get effective and easy-to-use tools to help you select your next home today. With our easy-to-use website, you can search listings throughout Northern Nevada and narrow the results by selecting every facet, quirk, and quality you desire. Visit CarsonCityHomes.com.
When a disaster strikes our region, will you be ready? Learn about sheltering in place. Since each emergency is different, make sure you plan for alternate routes away from your neighborhood. Plan meeting places and long-distance phone numbers if you are separated. Assemble food, water, medicines for at least 3 days, and a portable radio to stay informed. Remember, make a plan, assemble a kit, stay informed, be ready. For more information, contact your local emergency manager.
Celebrate your patriotic spirit this summer with the Carson Nugget $1 Million Red, White, and Blue Summer Giveaway. We're giving away scooters all summer, and the whole family can join in for outdoor barbecues. Come in today for your share of $1 million in cash, free play, and scooters.
Welcome again to the second portion of our show here on Women to Women. I'm Carol Paz, your hostess, and we have with us Elizabeth Tully that we're going to return to in just a few moments. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsors for the second half. I'd like to thank CarsonNow.org, which is the 24/7 place to go on the internet for all the latest breaking news here in Carson City. And to also thank Nevada Appeal and the Record Courier for their constant support of our local businesses, our small businesses. So with that, let's turn again to Elizabeth. Elizabeth,
Yes.
I think we're going to get right into the program in terms of what you're doing now to facilitate and to conquer on a daily basis and sometimes on a weekly or an event basis how you work with this eating disorder. And I think most of our audience remembers Karen Carpenter of the 70s with her brother, Richard Carpenter. And the world did not know, just as growing up, many people did not know of your eating disorder. And when the Carpenters were making their magic with music, Karen suddenly had a heart attack shortly after her marriage and died of cardiac arrest from her eating disorder, which was anorexia. So help us understand, is there a difference between anorexia and bulimia? Is one more intense than the other?
An anorexic will, the compulsion is to control food, to eat as little as possible, if at all. The anorexic will see something different in the mirror than what the rest of us will see. Okay. So it is the compulsion, the obsession, the way of escaping whatever root trauma or feelings is in the control of it's feeling in control when everything else feels out of control. It's one thing I know I can take charge of.
Okay.
Bulimia is getting rid of, it's vomiting, purging. There's exercise bulimia too, which is exercising away, burning away the calories, the huge amounts of calories after a binge. Bulimia is vomiting the
taking
food
laxatives
back up, or taking laxatives.
Right.
I often don't think of that because I never did that, but is absolutely part of bulimia.
And also
as well.
taking diuretics to get rid of the water.
Just getting rid
weight.
of, yes.
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 Any way they can think of.
So I hope that clarified.
Yes, and you brought about that in anorexia, there's often a distortion with the anorexic. They see themselves one way and the rest of the world sees them in a much more real.
Yes, but I dare say that women with eating disorders usually don't see who really they are in the mirror.
Right.
And part of the workshop that I'm facilitating is to work on that.
Tell us something about your workshop, Elizabeth.
It's completely based on the exercises and writings of my mentor, Janine Roth, whom I've never met. I've read her books. I've read them 6 times, some of them more. And she even has a workbook, and I'd be following many of her activities within the workshop. It's multi-layered. It's getting to the root of those moments of when we want to run away, which is the root of the compulsion, the desire to eat. So it's getting into also the history of our compulsion. So one of the first things that we would do in the workshop is an autobiography, because you're only as sick as your secrets. I think that is one of the things they do say in 12-step programs as well. And it is building a toolbox of coping with those moments when we want to compulsively eat, overeat, or starve wherever or over-exercise or purge. So it is an inside job. I have realized all these years, after all these diets and all this exercise, it doesn't matter what shake, diet, what new job, what promotion, where I moved, what new boyfriend. The compulsion is there until I work on being aware of who I am and where I'm coming from and having tools to cope. In a way, we're like babies that need to learn how to sit in some of those some big discomforts of life, and how to work through them instead of running away. And
Very
so,
briefly, why do you keep coming back to this particular author?
Because the root is beyond what she's saying is no diet works. Stop dieting. It doesn't work.
And in her book, you have a little paragraph. I'd like to have you just read it right here, if you would.
I may, a few paragraphs. It's a book of essays, and one essay is called "Whatever You Do, Don't Diet."
Okay. Now I can't have you read the whole essay,
Okay.
okay? But pick out the paragraph that you really think touches the
Okay.
nerve.
The fourth law of the universe, because there's three, right? Newton's laws. Is that for every diet, there's an equal and opposite binge. Diets aren't free. You will rebel, and when you do, you'll gain more weight than you lost. As fat as you feel now, you will feel and be fatter after the binge that follows the diet. This is Janine Roth, by the way. The basic message of a diet is that if you let yourself go, you will devour the universe. But you cannot say anything to yourself physically that doesn't also affect you emotionally. When you diet, you tell yourself that you can't be trusted, that your hunger for love, pleasure, friendship will destroy people. You begin to believe you are a hopeless, bottomless pit. This is not a kind thing to say to yourself. It is also not true. No one's hunger is bottomless.
I'm going to ask you to stop there for a second.
So what brings me again and again back to Janine Roth is that healing is through self-acceptance and love. Dieting is punishment, and deprivation is punishment, and going on a treadmill for 2 hours is punishment. This is about learning to love ourselves and accept ourselves. If I may.
Yes.
I used to think that when I was binging, it was because I hated myself. But this wonderful woman who's been through it all herself and has learned by doing, has taught me that I binge to take care of myself in a clumsy way, that I had no other tools with which to nurture and soothe myself. And so the part of the workshop is learning how to do that without food. So that's one of the things.
Great. This is kind of a personal question, but you mentioned, and it comes out again and again in different ways, you find out who you are. Who are you, Elizabeth Tully? Who have you discovered yourself to be? I know that you're a gifted musician.
I have done a lot of thinking about this at my tender young age of 49 and a half. I realized that I am a teacher and a cheerleader and a coach.
You're an encourager.
And I am an artist, very expressive, and I think that's my path from here on in, is to find a way. I love to write and to sing, and to take the path that I've walked and what I've learned, and I'm still on the path. The workshop is for me as well, to continue my own recovery, because it's not perfect and it's not clean. So to be that guide, to be an inspiration to others.
And to help others through the walk that you've journeyed
Yes.
in whatever way you can. Now, if people want to get in contact with you to find out more about your workshop, do you have an email address? Do you
Yes,
have a
I do.
contact?
It's called smilinginthemirror@gmail.com. And I think that is, my friend Shannon helped me come up with that name, and it is absolutely perfect and poetic because really, women, this is the goal, this is it. It's to love oneself, to accept every inch. Right now, no matter what you weigh, and one of the things we do is throw away the scale. Absolutely, you are not a number. It's smiling in the mirror is the goal. And so smilinginthemirror@gmail.com.
Okay. Well, you know, I think that's kind of but when we have a disorder, such as an eating disorder, or we have an addiction to something, we're talking about something that really gets a hold of you. Most of us, I have to say, I've gone on a diet from time to time, lost the amount of weight I wanted, and then came back again with a little bit more weight, and looked in the mirror and said, that's okay. I'm happy where I'm at.
Good for you.
And I barely get on a scale. I think I
Good
should.
for you.
So I think we want to strike a balance here that there are those of us who have taken, because of our culture, which stresses thinness so much, which stresses a certain look, svelte. Well, svelte for me is I can be a bit on the heavier side, and I love being me. So I think it takes a while to get there, because I can remember as a young woman thinking, if I can't wear this size, I've got to make it happen. And that can be destructive, that can lead.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to emphasize that not everyone who is overweight by whatever numbers in a brochure is a compulsive eater. I did have a woman come to see me, and I read my autobiography, because I'm first. I'll reveal who I am and what I've done. And she said, "Oh, no, that's not me. Menopause hit, and hormones, and this is." Not everyone who is overweight or has, as I say to my students, excess adipose tissue is a compulsive eater.
Right.
Not everyone who looks a normal weight is not compulsive. We see someone and we envy them, but we have no idea what's
behind the face.
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. I remember going to Weight Watchers meetings and feeling pretty much shunned, like, why are you here? And just kind of saying, you don't get it, you don't understand. But I wanted to be on a diet, and the women there, they knew I was off, but not the way that I truly was.
Okay. Well, I want to say, thank you, Elizabeth, so very much. And I'm looking forward to hopefully having you back on where you can share your music.
Oh, thank you.
Okay,
that would be awesome.
Because to be able to share a story like yours means that you now have a lot of confidence in how God made you. And it's a privilege to share those gifts that He gave you, enabled you with others, because that's where hope lies. It's in our personal stories transforming another person. If we're real, and if she can do it, if he can do it, there's hope for me too. And we need to support and encourage one another on these journeys, very much so. So I thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to seeing you next week with a brand new guest. In the meantime, stay well and enjoy this evening. Have a good night.